Good day all, it's that video game loving so-and-so here, waifu Belector, the only fair human on earth. I'm back to talk about our latest entry in the notable 2024 drops and provide you with some thoughts on what's good about it, what's bad about it, and what are just the indifferent facts about it, in hopes that you come away with a fair and accurate representation of what this game is, with today's subject being none other than Hellblade II: Senua's Saga, the long overdue follow-up to 2017's Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. It's so overdue, in fact, that I'm worried no one really cares anymore. Regardless though, I'm here to talk about it. So please remember to give the video a like and consider subscribing if you end up enjoying. Alright, here we go. And I'll begin at the beginning, the true beginning, by which I mean how the first game set up my expectations for this one. If you're unaware, the first Hellblade was an indie title, although you wouldn't know from looking at it. And that was always the novelty. It was a AAA looking game on an indie budget. And I know I said you wouldn't know from looking at it, but you would know from playing it. A lot of concessions were made in the gameplay department of the first Hellblade in order to bolster the graphics and cinematic presentation, making for a solid effort of a game with great narrative themes and really simplistic gameplay. I wasn't doing YouTube when that game came out, but I always had it marked down as a 6 out of 10. Despite that though, I was always pretty pumped for a sequel, because I figured with added budget, the potential of what this game could be if it could add more complex, worthwhile gameplay onto its story would be insane. Well, here we are, and what we have with Hellblade 2 is better, just not by a grand amount. So I feel like an important thing to know about this game is that it wants to be a movie. It's in that pantheon of games that clearly don't want to be games. Not games that are just cinematic, because you can do both. You can be cinematic and be very game-like. God of War Ragnarok's a great example of that, Metal Gear Solid, but Hellblade 2 isn't that. It's much more along the lines of a Naughty Dog game, in terms of how the ratio of importance between narrative and gameplay is distributed. And that distribution is with a heavy lean toward narrative. To be honest, throughout playing Hellblade 2, I couldn't help but to keep thinking of the Uncharted series, because they really feel similar to me in regard to their choice of technical narrative spectacle over the actual game part of the game. The only difference is, Uncharted wants to just do an Indiana Jones and be a Hollywood blockbuster, and Hellblade is doing an A24 and attempting to serve up indie high art. And in the case of both Uncharted and Hellblade 2, they do a good job at what they're going for, but not a great one, and unfortunately neglect the game part of the game in the process. And if I can get back to being specifically on Hellblade 2 again, I'm not really seeing what took so long to create. Listen, the game is really short. I finished up almost exactly at 5 hours and 45 minutes. But I don't mind a short game, I love a short game. But it's the same length short game as the first one, and it's not really packing in more either. It seems like the 7-year wait was mostly just development trouble. But it is what it is, I guess. Let's get more into the quality of what the game offers. Because although Hellblade 2 offers pretty much the same things the first game did, they are better in Hellblade 2, even if not by a ton. We'll start with the narrative, since it's clearly the star. As I mentioned, we've got a nice little A24 film here on our hands, although it doesn't mirror the best of A24, closer to more the middle of the road ones. Less Hereditary and more The Green Knight, but I do like Hellblade's story. I think it's good. It can be pretty slow to start up and a little plodding in places, but I think it has a good ending and creates some memorable moments as well. If you're unfamiliar, the lead character, Senua, suffers from psychosis. So throughout the game, you're constantly hearing the voices in your head that are ultimately extensions of Senua's thoughts and feelings, as well as seeing things that aren't there. And in the first game, it created this cool question about whether you were truly living in a fantastical world of gods and magic, or simply experiencing real 10th century Iceland through the eyes of someone who perceives it that way. That question is lost here in Hellblade 2, as it becomes clear that this is a mythological world. But I think what you lose with that cool narrative gimmick from the first game is traded in exchange for a story that resonates more in its moment to moment and creates more things for you to look back on. It all culminates in a story that maybe is only slightly better than the first. But that's the story. There is of course still gameplay, even if there isn't a ton to dive into. So Hellblade 2's gameplay is exactly the same as Hellblade 1, just executed a little bit better. The combat is this very arcade-like sword fighting where you do the light attacks, heavy attacks to break guards, block or dodge enemy attacks, or perfect block to get a parry. All of this is pretty standard and happening from a fixed perspective. You have no camera control or much movement control for that matter. You just kinda attack, block, and dodge. That's what the first game was, that's what this one is. And ever since I played the first game, I've compared this to the 2010 mobile game Infinity Blade. Does anybody remember that game? It was kind of an early mobile gaming hit. It had a few sequels, I think, too. I think they started putting them in Dave & Buster's for a while. Probably not anymore. I haven't been to Dave & Buster's in a long time. But yeah, Hellblade pretty much plays like this 2010 mobile game. So this was pretty dated combat even when Hellblade 1 did it in 2017. And as you might imagine, because gameplay is so secondary in Hellblade 2, there aren't a lot of different enemy types either, but because the game is only around 6 hours, it honestly doesn't really need a heaping helping of enemies. There are also a number of okay puzzles throughout the game that do enough to serve their purpose, which is the same purpose as the combat. That purpose being, oh yeah, give this person something to do while we show them our movie. Oh shit, we forgot to put some video game in our video game. No, but seriously, not unlike Uncharted, it's perfectly serviceable gameplay and nothing more. Because we called this a game, so we can't just make a movie. Better put some game in there. And make sure it doesn't suck too bad. To be fair though, Hellblade 2 has paced its gameplay points and story stuff mostly really well. It's probably the main thing that puts it above its predecessor. It just has superior pacing. But yeah, while Ninja Theory has certainly created a sequel better than the original, I wouldn't really say that they've created a great game here either. It's a good game, it's worth a play, it's worth your time, and it won't take up too much of it either. But it's nothing to really write home about. If I had to put a number on it, I think a pretty firm 7 out of 10 is what I've landed on. Check the game out if you've got Game Pass. It's like $50 if you want to just straight up buy it. Like I said, it's a good game and worth your time. Just don't expect it to really stick with you forever. Anyway though, those are my thoughts on Hellblade 2. Pretty short video, but it's a pretty short game that is pretty similar to the first one, so there's not a ton to go over if I'm honest. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about the game if you have them, and of course, do your favorite thing, hop in the comments and tell me how stupid and wrong I am. That's perfectly allowed. But on the off chance that you just enjoyed this, please give this video a like, and if you really liked it, then why not subscribe? Either way though, thanks for watching, and until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I'm worried Ninja Theory will get shut down. Goodbye.